Everyone, we are through beer tasting number 100. So we are rolling on to our second century. Jumping in with beer tasting number 101, our collabs tasting. Annex has recently released a trio of beers, all collaborations with different breweries and wineries. Now, it's only a trio. We always do 4 beers, so we're actually going to open up with their spectacular Vernacular. That's their Maibock. You know, very lightly hopped, very juicy, very round, kind of a nice spring beer for nice June afternoons, because we are actually into the June tastings now. Where the heck is 2022 going? Jumping out of that, we get into the trio of collab beers. So we have Practical Theology. For those of you who are on our tasting about Phantasm and Thiols, you'll see this is a pun. This is done in collaboration with Two Crows Brewing, who we've featured on the program before.
Two Crows Fishing Show, featuring Roy and Donnie.
And I think the key is to get right on the bottom with these shad. Yep. They sit on the bottom, you can bounce the fly across, you get a lot of hits because it takes so easy.
Oh, so you got to be ready to pull the trigger. There. Oh.
Yeah, they're hitting it on the strip, right on the bottom.
Just as soon as you start to strip it.
Jumping on, we have a beer called Pure Extravagance. This is a sour Saison and wine hybrid in collaboration with Nichol Vineyards out of BC. And then finally, the one I'm really excited for is a 33 Acres collaboration. It's a mango habanero sour called Vaulting Ambition. All of that and more coming up. Beer tasting number 101, June 1st, 2022. I'll see you all there.
I think he's talking.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to beer tasting number 101. I hope everybody's, a little bit recovered from beer tasting number 100 last week. That was a little bit of fun last week. And we actually did an Annex beer last week. Of course, we did the Idle Hands Italian Pills. But we're not doing that tonight. We are doing the spectacular Vernacular Maibock, and we're doing 3 beers from the new... Is it fair to call this a collaboration series, Rupert?
Oh, your audio's down for Rupert.
Oh, that's right, too.
Yeah. So it just so happened that all 3 were collabs. We wanted to sort of lean on our industry friends a little bit to help celebrate our 5th anniversary. And we turns out we've got some pretty big hitter friends in the industry.
I was going to say Nichol and 33 Acres is kind of a big deal. So Two Crows as well, but particularly Nichol, that's a really fun one to get. That's sweet. Sorry, I should have introduced our guest. This is Rupert Manguel, who I think is returning for his 3rd appearance from Annex Ales. It's going to be a heck of a lineup tonight. So we're going to start with the spectacular Vernacular Maibock here, and I think this might actually be our first Maibock. So do you want to kick us off by introducing the beer and introducing the style? Because, unless someone in the comments really wants to correct me on this one, I think it's our first one.
These are not very popular beers, and when we were actually discussing making one, being on the sales side of things, I was vehemently against it, vehemently opposed, and I was proven wrong. Maibocks are German-style lager, come out for the month of May. Funny thing about Maibocks and a bit of the history around it, they originated in a region called Einbeck, and due to a pronunciation error, somewhere along the line they started calling them Einbock, which translates to billy goat, and that's why you might see Maibocks or any bock have goat imagery on the cans and things like that. So a little Easter egg on this can. We one of our guiding principles at Annex is no gods, no masters. And we put that on all the cans that we put out. And if you look on this can,
no
it
goats.
actually says no goats, no masters.
Oh, I love that.
So I was so happy that we could do that. But like I was saying, I did not think that this would be a very popular beer, but our brew team absolutely killed it. This is one of my favorite beers that we put out this year.
Oddly enough, I'm going to say something nice about Big Rock in answer to one of the questions here. Can we name another Albertan Maibock? Yes, Big Rock actually made one when I was 19, so 20 years ago. And that beer was actually the first beer I ever got really geeky about. I think prior to that point, I was in university and drinking Labatt's Genuine Draft because I was a terrible human being. But I got really geeky about the Big Rock Maibock, and that was also how I discovered that beer really doesn't keep very well in a warm garage, because you're trying to keep this spring Maibock all winter, and by February it was absolutely disgusting. But yeah, that is another Albertan Maibock. It's one that I will always remember fondly, even if, you know, me and Big Rock are no longer friends. But yeah, this style, like it's so fresh and punchy and big, and it tastes like a really nice light spring beer, except it's bigger than that, and it's a little more complex than that. I'm really digging the color here.
Yeah, it's a beautiful color. Most Maibocks run between 6 and 8%, and ours comes in at like 6.7. You would never know it though. This is very much a patio crusher, but it is a style of beer that people don't gravitate towards. They won't pick it up unless you're able to talk about it a little bit with them. And as soon as you explain that it's a lager, definitely piques some people's interest. But yeah, I could drink this on a patio all day.
Well, I think it's been kind of a fun twist with how many lagers we've really seen coming into the market between Hellas and just the explosion of Pilsners, particularly Italian Pilsners, with you folks leading the charge on that. It's been a really interesting season for having more lagers, but this is, yeah, I'm guessing the only other Bock that I've really seen that maybe we've tasted it on here, I don't think we did, was Farr's Doppelbock that they had over the winter. That was delicious. But I'm trying to think of another Bock of any style that we've even seen in the market this last 2 years, at least since the beer market started doing really cool things again. This is the second?
Yeah, I mean, the other cool thing about this style of beer is that it really highlights the malt that we use, and so it's a very good example of how versatile Alberta malt is. So there's a lot of malt in here, a lot of varieties, I should say. Two-row, Vienna, Munich, and some Carafoam as well. So yeah, there's a lot going on just on the malt side of things.
No, that's beautiful. Craig asks, why a beer specifically for May? Was it just a traditional time to brew a big, strong lager, or?
Yeah, I would think so. I think it must have something to do with the agriculture season, which I can't really speak to. But everything sort of seemed to revolve around that when you look far enough back. So I would assume that that's where that comes from.
And being a lager, it probably would have been aged for a long time at this period, so it probably would have been brewed around January, February for release in May.
Yeah, that would make sense for sure.
What's your lagering time on this beer, or do you want to say?
We have worked really hard to not rush beers. I think there was a time especially when we didn't have our own canning line, that we were working under other people's schedules. We're able to have a lot more control over that these days, and it's just getting better and better. So I think this beer actually spent over a month doing its thing, and the Idle Hands, for instance, we would never have been able to have a beer like that full time, even I would say 2 years ago. So it's just speaks to the systems that our brewers have in place.
Cool. Eric asks, when you say Alberta malt, do you mean Red Shed specifically, or is the Alberta malting scene more than just Red Shed?
There are some other, like Origin, for instance, as well. We'll get some malt from them. But I mean, Red Shed, they definitely, I think they're probably the best at doing sort of the specialty malts. And that's definitely where we would look for anything other than two-row.
Perfect. We're going to leave the first beer there because we actually have something kind of cool to talk about. We're going to have you back in like 16 days. On Friday, June the 17th, you're going to be back. I'm going to be back. We're going to be drinking Annex again. I mean, spoiler warning, I'm going to be at Annex on Tuesday drinking Annex again. But, drinking Annex is something I do pretty much every day, so that's not really a surprise. But we are going to have a Father's Day virtual beer tasting in collaboration with the Rotary Club of Lethbridge. Mosaic branch, and entirely in support of the Adaptable Outdoors charity. Now, these are people who provide outdoor adventures for people with mobility challenges. So it's a really, really cool charity. It's going to be a really fun tasting. We're going to be doing 4 Annex beers, TBD. Rupert and I actually did have about a 5-minute conversation before this started, trying to nail down which 4 beers we were going to do. We didn't quite get it, but that's okay. We're going to figure that out tomorrow and Friday as we get more firm numbers for the event. Tickets are $30 because it is a charity event, and it does cost money to buy the beer and book Aaron and everything else. So yeah, it's going to be a really, really fun time. Friday night at 6:30. And yeah, that will be June the 17th, coming right up on us. So that's coming up. Let's talk anniversary beers. Now, our tasting order for this is going to be Vaulting Ambition, then Pure Extravagance, then the Practical Theology. Also, I love the name on this beer. That's fantastic. But yeah, I'll be honest, this is probably the one I'm most excited about, if only because I think my favorite sour in the market right now is the 33 Acres Mezcal Sour. I think that absolutely crushes. So, Annex with 33 Acres making a mango habanero sour. Talk us through kind of the making of this beer. Did they come to you? Did you collaborate just over a Zoom call? How did this come together?
So 33 Acres, they're from Vancouver. For those that don't know, they've actually just opened a tap room in Calgary.
It's done.
It's done. It's open.
Ooh.
Yeah, so maybe you'll be stopping there on Tuesday as well.
I mean, do they have food? Because
there are food options for sure.
Because I don't want to hurt your feelings. Because, I love Annex. But the reason I stop at Annex is largely for Little Empire.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you can still come by for a burger and then go have some beers at 33 Acres. But yeah, no, so they when they first came to town, I think they were just kind of making the rounds and introducing themselves. A small team from Annex about 2 years ago went on a little scouting mission to Vancouver and kind of met with them, and I think that's sort of where our relationship started. So when they came here and they were going to open up their tap room, we took them out for dinner. We had drinks with them. We'd love to do a collab with you guys. I think this would be a great opportunity to sort of help both of our brands. And we took them to a restaurant here called Calcutta Cricket Club, and on the menu there is a mango habanero gin and tonic, and drinking these all night long. Oh, like what kind of style of beer are we gonna do? Can't think of any ideas. And then it just dawned on somebody, like looking at their glass, let's just make this in beer form. So that's how that came about, and we all love that idea.
So you were there deep in your cups when this idea was proposed at 1 a.m.
Usually when the best ideas in this industry come about. So
they did generally tend to, yes. So this is, what's the alcohol in this cap? 6.5. That's high for a sour. I like that. Is some of that the sugar from the mangoes?
It's high for a sour, but it's not necessarily high for an Annex beer.
No, that's certainly true.
Yeah, I think that's maybe our contribution to this collab.
Just make it bigger, make it angrier.
That's right. Yeah. So the thing that we were very cautious about with this beer is that I don't know if you've had some other spicy beers out there that are too spicy. You can't even finish a pint, let alone have a few of them. Give you instant heartburn. Combine that with the acid reflux that you might get from a sour anyway. We wanted to be very cautious of that, but we really wanted to highlight the habanero flavor without necessarily burning your face off. So
these are de-seeded habaneros, I would assume.
No, so we were very, very cautious. So we kind of treated it like dry hopping. And just put a bunch of habaneros in like a cheesecloth and put them into the beer for an hour, removed them, and tasted the beer again the following day. And then did that same thing again for a second hour. And that's it. That's all the habanero that this beer ever saw. So you can I find that you can taste the flavor, but you don't necessarily get the heat. You get a little tingle on the tongue.
Yeah, I get a little bit of tingle right at the back of my mouth, and I
Yeah.
definitely get the flavor. I don't get a lot of aroma from the habaneros.
Mhm.
I get lots of mango, and I definitely get like a really nice. I think this is because of the alcohol. I do get a nice stiff grain bill nose on this, which I wouldn't normally expect from a sour that was flavored in this way. When I get a mango habanero sour, I very often expect, oh, it's going to taste like mangoes and habaneros, and there won't really be a lot of beer component to this. This definitely has a very strong like grain bill stiffness to it, which I appreciate, and it's a little bit different that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's something interesting, something else that was sort of interesting about this beer that was new to us was that we got our hands on a new yeast called Lactic Magic. So generally, when we sour beers, we're adding bacteria to sour it or some other souring agent, whereas this magic yeast converts glucose to lactic acid, and so basically does the souring for you. So that's why it doesn't taste like a typical Annex sour, but it definitely has that tartness to it, and that's not just coming from the mangoes, obviously.
I think so. Craig, how does the collaboration work? Is it just the conversation, sharing recipes, or did the folks from 33 Acres actually come to the brewery on brew day and brew this with you?
So yeah, thankfully, their head brewer was in town, and then some other guys that were involved with opening their tap room. They were around, so they came over on brew day. Usually, it's a very good chance to share ideas and share techniques. So to give you an example of how this might work, our mutually exclusive, the black IPA that we did with Sea Change up in Edmonton, that just won a gold at the CBAs. But they came down and basically taught us an entirely new dry hopping technique. And we learned that together, used it making that beer. And
Tell me about an entirely new dry hopping technique, because I've heard of like Randalled beers, and I know traditional dry hopping where you basically use it like a tea bag. What's an entirely new innovation in dry hopping? I'm fascinated.
I think it just had to do with the timing of it.
Okay.
And it was just something that our brewers hadn't thought of, and it really added to the aroma. And that's actually something that they started messing around with when it came to forward progress and force majeure now as well. So learning these techniques and applying them sort of like in our regular operations, and just kind of always working towards making a better product.
Oh, really? That's a great way to celebrate an anniversary, is to always be looking forward and trying new things and not resting on your laurels. I say
Absolutely.
that now, realizing that last year you literally rested on your laurels. I did a whole bunch of old beers. Now let's move on from my mild faux pas there and move on to something new.
I think that was just celebrating where we came from. It's not
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let's just move on. And with that said, that terrestrial magnetism was still absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't want to give too much away, but one of those beers is coming back in the next 2 months.
Yeah, it's going to be the peach one because everybody loves that beer.
Actually, no, it's not.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Wow. Okay, but when are we getting Original Echoes again? I still think it's your best IPA to this day. And nobody else seems to talk about it, but I still love it.
Well, the funny thing is, we would probably make that beer again, use a new dry hopping technique. It doesn't work, and it's not the beer that you remember, and everybody's disappointed.
You can never go home again. Already people are speculating Labour Party, because Labour Party was a huge hit down here. And yeah, Eric, brewers collaborating like musicians is fantastic. That's part of the reason that like the craft brew scene is so great, is people do talk and they do work together. You know, there are always exceptions. There are breweries that just get a reputation for not playing nice with others. But, you know, for the most part, everybody gets along. Have you been over to the new? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I was just gonna say that's usually part of their brand when they choose not to play nicely. Um, that's what they're going after. I haven't had a beer at the new 33 acres, but I've been inside it and it's beautiful. So,
No, I don't want to turn this into a 33 acres tasting event and just grill you about their stuff because this is an Annex focus. But I will ask, are they gonna have like their own separate brew house and produce Calgary exclusive beers, or is it just gonna be like, here's some 33 acre stuff that was brewed in Vancouver?
They've got a tiny brew system in there. So they will be making beers. I'm not sure if they're going to be making some of their core beers here or whatever they're making though is probably just going to be consumed on site because it is one of the smallest systems I've ever seen. So
yeah, that's what I expected. But I do like the idea of there being Calgary exclusive 33 acres beers.
Yeah, I think that's probably what you're going to see. But again, just probably to be consumed on site, so you might not be able to bring some package down with you.
No, I respect that. That's okay.
Tuesday treats for Kyle.
Well, I'll just get my little empire to go and wave to you on the way out the door. No, I'm not that much of the worst. I'm definitely the worst, but I'm not that much of the worst. Let's talk a little bit about pure extravagance before we get into it. We've been seeing some more like wine beer hybrids here. Like Burdock's been doing a ton of that, and I really dig Burdock stuff. Revel Cider, they've been doing like more cider wine hybrids, but again, it's still kind of in that family. What was the inspiration for this? When I think wine beer hybrid, I think Burdock, but what was your take on it, and how did you get looped in with Nichol Vineyards?
I believe the way that our relationship with Nichol came about was from just Andrew and Erica, the owners, vacationing out that way, spending time in that area, and drinking a lot of Nichol wine. So I think they were hanging out there, discussed the possibility of using some of their grape must in one of our fooders, and that's just kind of how it came about. Originally, this was called just a pink Saison for the longest time, and I don't really, these the way that the foeder beers come about. So like, there's just so much time in between releases that there's just so much conversation that can go on, and I think Nichol it was maybe their suggestion, said you can throw this in one of your foeders, and that's exactly what we did. The funny thing about so we have two foeders at Annex, and I'm not sure if you remember Profane Communion, which was already sort of like it was like drinking a bit of a Pinot Noir, crazy black Saison. That's the foeder that this beer came out of.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So there might be some sort of qualities that you might be able to pull out of it, but it's basically the same bacteria. Is
this the first foedered beer for you that you've ever canned?
That's a great question, and it is.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was.
There was I think the very first beer that went into foeder got canned, and there was no wild bacteria in there.
What the heck would that have been?
I don't remember because I wasn't around for that. But I remember seeing there's a can somewhere around the brewery that's a foeder aged beer that was put in can. But we've had a lot of difficulty trying to get the awareness up about that program for us. I don't think 750 ml bottles are a very popular format.
They are not.
So we switched to 500 mils for the last release for the sponsored content, the Flanders Red. That did a little better, but we sold out of this one in 12 hours of announcing it.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So
that's great.
People obviously want to drink foeder aged beers. They just don't want to drink it from bottles. The other thing that we did with this beer was we released, we packaged some into magnums, and people love the idea of popping big bottles. So
I had to pass on those because I wasn't sure I could sell them down here. Like, if it was coming out at Christmas, I could definitely sell them, but I don't know if there's even people watching this, people who would want a 1.5 liter magnum of Fruiter aged sour Saison wine hybrid.
It's kind of fun because I mean, and that's part of the reason why this beer is called Pure Extravagance. I think the Magnum idea came before naming the beer. We were actually looking for larger format bottles, larger than a Magnum, but we couldn't find any to get in time. We just think it was such a ridiculous idea, and people seem to love it. So I think there's maybe a handful left in the tap room to go, but that's about it.
This is absolutely lovely. This is shocking for the fact that you can get a 4-pack of this for, I think we're doing it for $21.95 or $22.95. That's a stupid value, and B, that's just lovely. I love how soft and buttery and lightly tannic it is. It's so fluffy in the mouth. Like, it's just okay. It's 8.5% alcohol, so I probably shouldn't drink the rest of this and drive home. And so I won't. But I really want to.
You would never know that it's 8.5%.
Yeah,
I think the oak really shines through on the nose. Definitely get like some white wine notes. It's just such a complex beer. I'm so proud that this beer came from our brewery.
You should be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about like Burdock beers, I absolutely am head over heels for those guys, and I think this stands up to kind of what they're doing. So
if this had a Burdock label on it, I wouldn't know it was made anywhere else. This is really top class stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. But that's the other thing. Now that this is available in cans, and again, this goes to how much our systems in the brewery have improved, that we're not worried about contamination, because the brew team just do such a fantastic job day to day, always working towards sanitizing everything, keeping things the way that they should be, and not letting, like, we're not even worried about it anymore. So I think you're going to see a lot more wild yeast being used in our steel fermenters as well. I think that's something that we can do. I know you've had Lost Causes, or cherry pomegranate dry hop sour.
Yep.
So that was in a 500 ml bottle, and again, it was the same problem. It was a fantastic beer, but because it was in a bottle, I don't think it did very well.
That fridge, I mean, I think we lost more inventory when that fridge froze than we sold out of it in the first 5 months of the year. Single formats are tough, even like single format tall cans. And Tyler in the comments was comparing this to the Blood Brothers White Lies that we had last week as part of our 100th beer tasting anniversary party. And yeah, you're right. This does compare really favorably to the Blood Brothers. And, you know, when I was saying, hey, this is a heck of a value, it wasn't because, hey, get in here, buy some. It wasn't just that. It was also the fact those Blood Brothers are $10 a can. It's like $22-ish for 4. No, like it's half the price of what Blood Brothers is charging, and that's why I kind of think it's great. Is like, it's not just delicious, it's also compared to other soured, fooded, even Blind Man's fooded series. Like, all of their, I think they're either 375 or 500 ml bottles. Like, they're all like $8, $9, $10, if not a little more. This is ridiculously cheap for what it is.
So, Kyle, you're saying that we could charge more?
You could. You shouldn't. To me. So charge more to everyone else. Sell to me for the same price.
You got it. Yeah, no, just such a big fan of this beer. Yeah, the oak really shines through for me. I think that's the big difference between a beer like this that would be made in the steel fermenter and one that's coming out of our foeder. And then obviously the combination of all the craziness that's gone in to that foeder beforehand.
The big thing I'm actually getting off of it right now, and it may not last, is right after I get that like buttery, sweet caramel vanilla oak note in the mouth, immediately after that it transitions straight into like pickled watermelon immediately. And I get this beautiful, sweet pickled watermelon flavor right in the mid-mouth, and it's Again, my palate's not fully recovered from COVID. Maybe nobody else on earth is going to get this, but I get it, and I'm really grooving on it.
Something special for just you.
Something special for just me and my terribly broken palate post-COVID. Oh, this just... I apologize for anyone who's really bored or didn't like this and is just annoyed that I'm lingering so long on it, but I really like this.
Not like this.
No, I haven't had a single negative comment, but there are people out there who might not like a fruiter-aged sour Saison wine hybrid. Somebody got the beer tasting for someone who's really into Bud Light, and they're just sitting at home stewing with anger at how long we're loitering over this. That's fair. I get it.
I get the pickle brine.
You get the pickle brine thing?
Hell yeah.
I was just sitting at before coming home to set up for you guys. Was sitting in the tap room and tasting all 3 beers with somebody else, and this beer wasn't necessarily their favorite. They were much more excited for the next beer that we're gonna have, but you can't deny how complex, how interesting this beer is.
No, you really
for
can't.
you.
And I am going to finish that can the second the cameras go off. That's not proud of it, but it's a thing that's going to happen.
And now that you're talking about pickle brine, I'm starting to pick that up too. I don't know if I like that.
I do. I really do. And it's not pickled vegetables, it's pickled fruit. For me.
Mm.
And Chris and Tyler are saying not only did you do a great job with the anniversary beers, the packaging also looks really, really sharp for the anniversary packaging. I think that looks really, really, really sweet.
Really appreciate that. Thank you. There's a lot of hard work goes into our packaging, and I'm not sure if some people have seen the new labels. We were actually just discussing that, Kyle, before we started. So we're rolling out sort of more like a brand refresh than anything else, and it's just to tie in our small batch releases to the core beer family a bit, just so when you see them on the shelf, they don't look like they're from 2 different breweries.
Which, fair, they kind of do right now. Yes, you're not wrong.
Yeah. The other thing, the other reason behind that is that we were using shrink sleeves for the core beers.
And we can't do shrink sleeves anymore.
Well, one of our guiding principles at Annex is sustainability. So we wanted to move to something that was a bit more sustainable. And yeah, we were just wasting so much one-way plastic when you think of how many beers get packaged off our canning line every day. Yeah, we just wanted to move to something a bit more sustainable. Yeah, so it's awesome to hear that you guys are enjoying the packaging, the way that the labels are looking these days.
I think I do, at least. So, and it sounds like, at very least, Chris likes it as well, because we've had one comment about the packaging. So
thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
So we're going to quickly step away from talking about Annex for a moment and talk about what we have coming up next week. Next week, we are doing a tasting with the folks from Snake Lake, and we're going to be doing an all-seasonal lineup. So we have 4 beers from Snake Lake coming up. We will have a guest from Snake Lake. That is confirmed. Whether it's going to be Adam or Amanda or both is very not confirmed. So I will confirm we have a guest. Who the bloody hell they are, I don't know. But these are all their most recent seasonals that we've gotten down here. We have their Taco IPA and their Fieldberry Crush, which are returning from last year. This is their New England IPA with flaked maize, corn chips, sea salt, and lime zest. And this is their Wild Berry Sour, which is always a lot of fun. It's very bright purple and just neat. I like this beer. Then in the middle, we'll get to this in a second. We have the new Stargazer IPA. So to taste right next to the taco, this is down at 4.8% alcohol with Mosaic T45 pellets and Strata as the hopping. So what we'll talk about here in a minute with the Practical Theology, kind of a very 2022 IPA with some of the new modern hop alternatives. And then, well, it took 102 beer tastings, but I'm finally going to taste a black IPA. Aren't we all so happy about that? Well, like a sad slide whistle is the sound effect for that. Ooh, yeah, no. I mean, I taste a black IPA, my least favorite style of beer. I would rather drink adjunct lager than black IPA. I do not enjoy them. I've got a very green eggs and ham. I don't like it anywhere sort of complex with black IPA. So, we will be doing these space boots, and I hope you all like it. I won't. So yeah, that is coming up next week. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go into something I'm very likely to enjoy, a triple IPA with Phantasm at 9%. Good God, 6.5 to 9? You guys did not go light on this. Happy anniversary. You'll be drunk till next anniversary.
Yeah, it was a pretty good party. That's for sure. We had fun.
Thanks for the invite to that party that didn't come my way. Oh, that's right. I did too, except I think I was busy. I forget what I was doing.
You were definitely busy. I think you had a lot going on that week.
It has been a weird year, I'll say that. So we've talked a lot about Thiles. We've talked a lot about Phantasm with pretty much everybody. Like we talked a lot about it when we tasted Book Learning. We tasted Dial Up. We talked about it with Cheat Code. We've talked about it with just a ton of different beers lately. So we're not going to dive too deep into what Phantasm is, too deep into what Thiles are, because we've covered that. Like we had a whole tasting about it a few weeks ago. But this, you and Two Crows, where did that relationship come from?
So, funnily enough, there is somebody who works for Two Crows who originally is from Calgary. And he's a good friend of a lot of people in the beer scene and the music scene here in Calgary. And that's why you might see some like Two Crow collabs, some Two Crows tap takeovers, things like that happening pretty frequently, just because this one individual has got a lot of friends out here. Luckily for us, going back to our fooders, the very first, so in the second fooder, the very first very first beer to come out of that was a Two Crows collab called Bad Boy Club. And they actually flew some of their yeast out to Calgary and slapped it in the fooder. So that's kind of where that relationship came from. This beer is not what I was expecting first thing when you look at it. This beer has not been filtered. This beer is maybe the clearest beer to ever come out of the Annex Brewery. And that's not what you would expect from a beer using Phantasm, because I think
no, you wouldn't at all.
And I don't even think that our brewers used Phantasm for the first time, and then also a new yeast for the first time called Theology.
Yes.
So it is supposed to be the most aromatic beer basically we've ever made. And I'm glad that you guys have discussed Theols before, because I know very little about them, and this has been a kind of learning experience, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around like what that is.
It's the most cutting edge thing in beer right now, and I mean Phantasm was available to like 2 breweries in Canada 2 years ago, and now it's kind of hitting not even the mainstream. It's just kind of like not just 2 dudes anymore that get access to it. It's a little bit more available.
Again, though, it's not. It's actually all relationship based. They don't give Phantasm to just anyone. So basically, I think the way that we got Phantasm is because Establishment used it, and they spoke on our behalf, and that's how we got our hands on some. Any beer that's made with Phantasm needs to get sent to them, just so that they know what's going on with their product. It's crazy how this has just kind of taken over.
But Rupert, mailing beer to New Zealand would be very illegal. However, do you manage getting some samples of your beer with Phantasm to New Zealand?
I think we mailed yeast samples to Toronto to some of their buddies, and I think they took it from there.
Yeast samples, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're not lying.
Nope. That is certainly that is absolutely technically true. And yeah, I agree, Eric. Like Phantasm is getting more and more and more interesting. And they need to make a black IPA called Baines' Bane. Yeah, well, I don't like it. It's true. I'm famously not a fan.
Who said that?
I think it was Eric. It was Eric.
Of course.
Just quickly scrolling through here. Yeah, you know what? I really love this. This is very much my style of beer. I think I actually like the Pure Extravagance slightly more. And it's really hard to beat that one. It teaches you so many things. And maybe it's because I've had so much like super Theo heavy beer just this last 3 weeks because we've had so many come out very recently. So was book learning kind of like the proto beer for this? Was that where you made sure you knew what you were doing before you dived into this?
No, I mean, funnily enough, like book learning was just kind of an experiment in water profiles. And then on to kind of top that off, we used some Australian hops that never really get used at Annex. And that's why it came across as a non-Annex beer. This we were lucky enough to get our hands on Phantasm, and then again just like the conversation with Two Crows. Well, it was obviously we were going to do a big IPA. So
well, you have to. What else are you going to do with your Phantasm, really?
Yeah, but again, I don't think I've seen a Phantasm beer look like this at all. It definitely
not
doesn't.
this clear, no.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it tastes.
I just dribbled all over myself. We'll just ignore that. Now, I have to ask, like, in terms of, getting it, like, I assume it all comes from the same place and it shows up in like a black van that parks out back of the brewery next to your god-awful loading dock that no one likes. If you've ever tried to load up beer at Annex that didn't come through the front door, especially in winter, I imagine you have as many scars as I do from the experience. But yeah, I imagine you have like shady backroom deals and they show up in the middle of the night or just come FedEx and it's very boring.
I think the excitement around getting our hands on some overshadows the FedEx van that just pulled up and dropped it off. Honestly, like our brewers were like kids on Christmas morning. Like they any chance I think that they get to use something new and mess around with, they're just so happy, and that's why they got into this in the first place. And then it paid off. I think this is such a wonderful beer. 9% beers can be kind of scary. This doesn't taste hot to me whatsoever. Again,
no,
I think
it doesn't. This is one of a series of four that tastes ludicrously dangerous.
Yeah. And again, this goes to our scheduling and not releasing beers too early and giving them the time and care that they need to get the best product out of them. So
now, because I'm old, I can remember things like the Sierra Nevada Southern Hemisphere Hop Harvest Wet Hop Ale that only came out in spring when the New Zealand Hop Harvest was done. Is Phantasm similarly linked? Because it's coming from freshly harvested New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc grapes. Is Phantasm something you're only really going to see Phantasm IPAs in spring here, fall in New Zealand, right after the grape harvest? Or is this something that it's going to be year-round?
So Phantasm is freeze-dried grape must. So I think
it's stable.
It's stable. You're probably going to see more of it, obviously, probably around their harvest time, as they'll only have a certain amount, and it'll probably get harder to get your hands on it the longer the year goes on until the next harvest. But it is stable, and you'll be seeing these beers a lot more. I think it's interesting just to see the variety in the Phantasm beers that are coming out, though. I think people are just trying to experiment with them, and you're going to see some some things that are going to be huge hits and some things that are going to miss a little bit. Because I think the go-to is to make a New England IPA or a hazy IPA. And I think once people get away from that a little bit more, it'll be interesting to see how else this can be used.
I actually kind of think that this would actually be more interesting, almost in a Saison sort of thing. Like, I'd love to see the Phantasm introduced, like, as a very late edition. But again, Phantasm, as I recall, it has to be fermented. It's part of you have to have the exact right water profile and the right fermentation temperature. And you don't put it in with the boil, you put it in with the primary fermentation. And that's when it will actually do its thing.
So we used it in the boil and the fermenter. You know, and it's, sorry, my cat's getting all crazy.
Well, we definitely need to see the cat then, obviously. That's just tradition around here.
The cat.
Sorry, now he's run off.
Now he's run off.
My cat's name is Gary, and I'm sure somewhere out there that there's a guy named Gary who's got a cat named Rupert.
Probably. Cryogenically frozen in disguise in an aftershave can. Yeah, nobody cares. Sorry, that was a very deep joke for some people. But yeah. So how does the Phantasm... So Craig asked, how does the Phantasm ship? Does it ship on the skin?
No, it's a powder. So it's just a deep fried powder. Deep freeze-dried powder, sorry.
See, that's just good Jurassic Park references. Thank you, by the way. Thank you, Eric. That made my whole night, actually. And completely derailed the tasting, because that just hit me right in the funny bone. So, moving right along. What else are we going to see from Annex in the next little while? What's new? What's coming up? I know you can't talk about the beer that is apparently not the peach.
No, but we are messing around with the idea of doing a wild version of that peach coming out of the foeder, so that'd be kind of cool. We do have our Neighbor Day.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in there. Is it going to be 100% wild, or are you going to like do a wild foeder of the peach and then blend it back with a couple of stainless tanks of it?
No. It'll be aged in the foeder, and then it'll be conditioned on fresh peaches. And then hopefully that comes out in cans as well, because I like to think that we didn't have any issues this time around. So
I can see you all smirking. If you're making me look like Wayne Knight, I know it's coming. So
We're not doing it.
Sorry, I do not trust my production team tonight at all. Who the hell is Wayne Knight? Wayne Knight was the guy who in Jurassic Park had the frozen embryos in the shaving cream can. Hopeless. He carried Space Jam because Michael Jordan can't act. Conditioned on fresh peaches.
You're not even going to say that he's Newman?
I mean, he is also obviously Newman, but I mean, he was in Space Jam. He was in Jurassic Park.
References.
I'm trying to think what else he was actually in. But yeah, I mean, those are the ones I know him best for.
Sex in the City.
Yeah, so we've got that coming out. We've got our Neighbor Day beer coming out. It's a collab with Establishment. That's coming out mid-June.
Can we talk a little bit about style, like a hint?
It's going to be a Mexican style lager.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that one. Again, we were saying how lagers are, hot this season. Continue to be so.
Yeah, they had kind of a minute last year, and now they're back again this year. Can I ask, like, from the brewery side, like, I don't generally think of Mexican-style cerveza as being a style of beer I particularly reach for. I like a Corona and lime when I'm 7 drinks in as much as anyone does. But it's not a style that I usually look for. From a brewer's side, what's the fascination with Mexican-style cerveza versus other styles?
I think just mid-June we were thinking of doing something absolutely crushable that we they're literally our neighbors. Like there's a little alley. You've probably driven around it as you're going to that loading dock that you hate so much.
Do you like that loading dock?
I walk up and down it every day, and I've never.
Yeah, do you drive up and down it?
I drive up and down it all the time.
Yeah, you're much better at driving than me. But yeah, there's you folks, and then there's something between you and the other side of the building, and there's that motorcycle shop, and then it's establishment.
Yeah, and that motorcycle shop apparently isn't going to be there for much longer. I think there's talks of establishment expanding that way. But I could be wrong. But either way, like we have beers, especially in the summer, with those guys just hanging out in that little area right by what would that be, the east side of our building. And it just kind of came up that, if we're going to do a beer together, let's just do something that we would want to drink on those hot afternoons. So the beer's going to be called Fast Friends. And yeah, it's just going to be super crushable, Mexican style lager. What else do we have going on? There's some other beers that are coming back. I think West Coast IPA will be releasing again. Yeah, I don't know. There's a cherry tangerine, cherry peach pale ale coming out soon.
So Labour Party 3 confirmed.
Yeah, 3.0.
That was kind of a Half-Life 3 confirmed joke, but it really is Labour Party 3, so come on, Aaron. Come on. Yeah, you nerdy. Whatever. Not even the nerdiest one of my friends I know.
This is just like a very tricky time of year to start scheduling small batches. Just because we're ramping up production. June and July are just like the craziest months for us in general. So on top of that, like we still have the soda going on. Soda is just an absolute beast for us in the summer. So yeah.
Do you have a completely separate soda team versus brewery team, or is it the same people?
No, there's one brewer in particular that I think enjoys making soda a bit more than the others. He's messing around with some small batch sodas, so he's always kind of like working on stuff as well. But yeah, no, all that kind of goes to speak to our No Gods No Masters. It's just everybody sort of pitches in around doing all the jobs whenever necessary. That's kind of where that comes from.
Eric asks, are Calgary breweries still in the throes of supply chain woes? Because, I mean, everybody kind of is, but how's it hitting you worse than maybe other people?
I think we saw it coming a ways away. So we've got a lot of things under contract. For instance, our fruited sour series, we have a fruit contract going into next year. So we know exactly what we're going to have. Whereas I think there are some other breweries that just are paying ridiculous amounts for whatever they can get their hands on right now. And so you might see some beer releases go up in price from other breweries. But yeah, things like that. We were actually talking about like the aluminum can or the aluminum price increase as well. Just things like that, I think, are kind of getting under control now.
So aluminum prices are starting to stabilize, but fruit purees and more agricultural products are starting to spike a little bit more unless you already have a locked-in price.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see what happens with fruit over this summer. I think everybody's expecting wildfires to be absolutely nuts and some like drought issues as well. So I think there's going to be some issues for some breweries that aren't as prepared.
All right. Well,
Here's
we are
Gary.
at 6. Oh, here's Gary. I'd love to see him, but Aaron's fat head is in the way.
Oh, Gary.
There we go.
Oh, he hates that.
Oh, he hates that. Yeah, he's not a fan.
There he goes.
But yeah, thank you, Rupert. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Rupert.
No,
Yeah,
thank you guys.
No, you know what? I love this. This was such a fun thing to do. We do have all 3 of these on the shelves for now. They're not going to stick around very long, I don't think. But I won't rank them, but I do think that this is that's ludicrously special. I should like this more because I'm an IPA geek, but that pure extravagance just does it for me. That's beautiful.
It's awesome that we can include a beer like that in a tasting like this, because I don't think we'd be cracking bottles or include them in tasting. So hopefully this is sort of like an introduction of what we're capable of for a lot of people that weren't aware or didn't want to spend the extra dollars on a different format.
Yes, and I'm not sure what exactly survived the great freezing of 3-4 weeks ago when we lost our entire singles fridge, but we definitely still have a few NX bottled beers from the Fruited series. But what we have, the reason that fridge looks really empty, yes, for anyone who hasn't heard, we lost the entire fridge to a bad thermostat, and everything froze. So we're kind of starting over from scratch.
Harsh.
So it happens.
Cool cans.
They are really cool cans.
By
Yeah,
the way.
they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
Anyway, awesome. We will see you in a week for our Snake Lake tasting. Rupert, thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you in a week. Take care.
Thanks, guys.